When we hear the phrase self-care, we think of doing something gentle, compassionate, and loving for ourselves, but now it's not always the case. Self-care is used to sell overpriced candles as enlightenment or to shame people for not vibrating higher. In this video, I want to discuss 5 toxic self-care trends that are worth avoiding completely. Maybe there will be a good dose of controversy in my sharing, it's always up to you to judge. On this channel, which is about the gentle philosophy of finding and nourishing your true self through meaningful ideas, relationships, and things, I'm being very opinionated, very subjective and honest, yet I never impose. It's just an invitation to think together. So here is the first toxic self-care trend to avoid. I first got acquainted with the affirmation practice in my early or mid-20s when my cousin gifted me a book by Louise Hay. Back then, and it was about 18 years ago, it was all new and interesting. I read the whole book, yet when I changed the apartments, I decided to leave that book to next tenants. I didn't want to reread that book or to keep it. And now I finally completely understand what was repulsing for me in that positive affirmation practice. In a nutshell, that practice involves using positive statements repeatedly to reshape one's mindset and build self-belief in order to replace negative self-talk with positive declarations that support personal goals and well-being. All this sounds pretty good, right? But only until it becomes a dogma. When we rely heavily on affirmations, they risk to become a form of spiritual bypassing when we tend to mask pain instead of healing it. Over time, this can create a dissonance between what we say we feel and what we actually feel, leaving us emotionally exhausted. This isn't to say that affirmations are completely useless. They can be very powerful anchors in the moments of doubt or when you need a little bit of extra support and motivation, but they work best when paired with honest self-reflection and not being just a substitute for it. Real healing isn't about plastering positive words over negative feelings. It's about acknowledging the mess and sitting with it and letting us show something very important. This rhymes with the first trend, yet it has its own nuances. Overall, it's the pressure to maintain a relentlessly upbeat and positive attitude, even when faced with difficult or challenging circumstances. Another term that is often used for this trend is toxic positivity. A couple of years ago, I even made a review of the book titled Toxic Positivity, and if you're interested, it's somewhere on this channel. And while I wholeheartedly believe that optimism matters, and in my personal everyday life, I try to nurture more optimism and lightheartedness, the oppressive nature of optimism in the current state of self-care universe is quite unnerving. The more we are told to just think positive, the more we feel like failures for experiencing such normal human emotions as sadness, anger, or doubt, or frustration. This phenomenon manifests across different spheres of life. In workplaces, the positive psychology movement is used to justify unreasonable demands under the guise of growth mindset. In relationships, it creates unrealistic expectations that partners should always be uplifting, leaving no space for vulnerability. Even in grief, a well-meaning advice to focus on the positive can actually prolong mourning and prevent us from properly processing all the emotional turbulence going on inside. I remember how during a post-funeral dinner for my father, one family member told me, "Stay strong. This is the natural order of things." And all I wanted was to punch them in the face because, yeah, I get the natural order, but this order doesn't take away my pain, and I have a full right to feel this pain. True emotional health isn't about denying darkness, but about learning how to navigate it with self-compassion and authenticity. There is one more facet of this toxic trend, which is about the dictatorship of joy. When the whole complexity of human experience is reduced to just a single metric, does it spark joy? But life isn't a Marie Kondo exercise when we can neatly discard everything that doesn't elicit instant delight. Philosopher Albert Camus warned against this flattening of existence when he wrote, "You will never be happy if you continue to search for what happiness consists of." Somewhere along the way, self-care has become a synonym to beauty ritual, yet another item on a to-do list which happens to come with a price tag. We keep buying, hoping that the next product will deliver what no cream can deliver actually: self-acceptance. There is nothing wrong with enjoying beauty rituals. I love my skincare products. I love when they smell good, when they feel good. They have a wonderful grounding effect on me. But self-care shouldn't be used to buy our way to worthiness. Real self-care might mean unfollowing influencers who equate beauty with morality, or questioning why treat yourself so often means spend on yourself. Because when a $50 candle is marketed as therapy, we've lost the plot. And maybe it's high time to remember that self-love was never meant to be monetized. On one of my birthdays, I think it was 36th or 37th, my brother gifted me a smartwatch. It counted my steps, it tracked my sleep, my heartbeat. It wasn't a fancy watch, yet it told me a lot of information about the life of my body. Yet I stopped using it in about 6 months. I did it because I suddenly noticed how I began to adjust my life in order to see better results on the app. And that was a very scary discovery. We live in an era where every heartbeat, step, and calorie can be quantified and judged against some invisible standard of optimal. Apps promise enlightenment through data, as if self-awareness could be reduced to numbers. There is a curious paradox in this culture of measurement. The more we track, the less we actually live. When we get too obsessed with hitting the milestone of 10,000 steps a day, we often miss the joy of having a spontaneous walk. Or when we get focused on sleep stages, we forget how to simply rest. Modern tracking culture turns us into strangers in our own lives, prioritizing progress over presence. Real self-care is the courage to sometimes close the apps, to eat without logging, to move without counting, to exist without proving you've optimized your existence. Philosopher Alan Watts once said, "You're under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago." Life isn't a stock portfolio. It's a wild and untamed thing, and real self-care begins with listening to your body and not outsourcing this intuition to an algorithm. The fifth thing that I wanted to talk about is not a self-care trend, but rather a socially imposed characteristic of self-care overall. We've been sold the idea that self-care should feel like sinking into a warm bath, giving us instant relief and comfort. But what about self-care that doesn't feel good in the moment? Going to therapy, setting boundaries, or sitting with difficult emotions are not pleasant. They don't spark joy, they don't bring comfort, at least at first. Neuroscience shows that growth requires discomfort, that our brain's neuroplasticity thrives only when we challenge the old patterns. Yet our culture treats any uneasiness that we feel as if something is wrong with us, as if it's a glitch that needs to be fixed. Life is difficult not because we are doing something wrong or because we are manifesting not hard enough or because we are not manifesting at all. The thing is that meaningful change demands overcoming resistance. Even the body follows this rule because the muscle grows through micro tears and not through just massage. I will be very interested to read your thoughts and opinions in the comments, whether you find these self-care trends toxic or not, or maybe you have something to add to this list, but please don't forget to be respectful and kind in the comments. Thank you so much for your time, attention, and support of my work, dear friends. For now, as always, be safe and keep your heart open. And I will see you very, very soon. Пока-пока.